Hey, welcome. Let's talk a little bit about carbon capture and storage. You're probably wondering why on earth I would be digging in on this particular topic. The reason why I am is that for most of you, I'm sure you're aware there's this massive movement going on around the ESG space. And since that's a $52 trillion space globally by the year 2025, carbon capture fits in there nicely. And I just want to shed some light on what this is and how does blockchain fit, as well as who are some of the players in this newer space, such as the BlackRocks of the world. So before we dig in, just a real quick about me. I've spent almost 5 years at IBM, and when I was there in 2015, when I started, I led the industrial sector there, and underneath that sector, there's 4 industries. And one of those is the oil and gas industry. Also, I was responsible for several of the products, but one is including blockchain to the enterprise, aka the industrial sector. So during my time there, I signed as a lead negotiator over 100 contracts during my time there. And these were the largest of the largest deals that IBM had going for North America for that sector. And then in addition, I'm also a former co-founder of a Bitcoin and Ethereum hedge fund, which I recently left, but I was the key architect of the overall setup, aka the buy and sell setup. So I mention that because I've got some companies that I want to share in terms of just who's involved, such as the BlackRocks of the world and around 13 or so other companies. There's several out there, but I handpicked around, I think, 12 or 13 or so, and I want to share that with you. All right, so here's what I was thinking is number one, let's talk about this. What is carbon capture and storage? What's driving carbon capture and storage, and then the overall size of the market, and then just to share who are the players that are in this overall space. So I'm in Wikipedia. I thought this might be a good place to start, a neutral, safe zone. The carbon capture and storage, and I just highlighted a few things to call out, but this is the process in which relatively a pure stream of carbon dioxide, aka CO2, from industrial sources is separated, treated, and transported to a long-term location. And I'm going to share with you visually what CCS is to help give you a better understanding. The technology generally has a success rate between 50 and 68% of carbon capture, but then some of the projects have exceeded 95% efficiency. So it sounds like the technology is moving along quite nicely. So here's just an image that I found online. I was hoping that this might help at a high level describe what the heck this carbon capture and storage is. So it's a 4-step at a very high level, and I'm going to really oversimplify this, but it's a 4-step process. And the first one is the production. So just think of like coal, oil, et cetera, the production of it. And then once we have the production, then what happens is it gets moved down into a power plant where it breaks apart the CO2 and separates that, and then it captures that. And then the third step is its transportation. But in this image, you can see the transportation right here is pipeline, but there's a variety of ways to transfer carbon capture. It could be by sea, it could be by freight, by train, it could be by boat. But in this example, it is by pipeline. And then the last thing is storage. So in this case they're calling this injection, which means they're going to put it back into the ground. And typically these are depleted oil and natural gas reservoirs or unminable coal beds. And there's other ways to store it, which I'll share with you real quick, another visual to hopefully help give you a good kind of high level understanding. So here's another visual. So hopefully this may help a little bit to get a high level understanding. So in this phase right here, this is the capture phase where they separate the CO2, then they compress it, and it's temporarily stored right here. And then what happens is this will go into this example from a transportation standpoint. This is going to be compressed CO2 transported by ship And then once the ship gets to land, it's going to be temporarily stored as well. And then from a storage stand, on the previous example, these were depleted mines or old mines. But in this one, they actually store this permanently in a reservoir about 1,000 or 2,000 meters below the sea level. So hopefully at a high level, that kind of gives you an idea. So I took a little pit stop in Google Bard, and I wanted to ask Bard in terms of how big is the total addressable market, the 5-year growth rate, and some of the companies involved with this globally as well as here in the US. So right here is the TAM, the total addressable market for the carbon capture. So according to Google Bard, as of right now, by the year 2050, this space is expected to grow to right around $1 trillion. And then the CAGR, which is the cumulative average growth rate, just think of like a batting average. So the higher, the better, but it's going to be on average, looks like 10% from the year 2022 to the end of this decade. And here are some, not all, but just some of the players. And by the way, I've done previous videos where I talk about ExxonMobil, Chevron, British Petroleum, Schlumberger, all in terms of what are they doing, because those companies as well look like, from a investment standpoint here in the next few months, those look like they are shaping up nicely, and all of those companies I mentioned are also doing carbon capture and storage. So here I am in Google Bard. I wanted to ask the question, and the question was, hey, tell me the top 10 US or global financial news from 2021 to current date that also include coal. So again, these are all stacked ranked by date. So number one is the US Supreme Court. What they're saying is they want power plants to reduce their emissions by 30% by the end of the decade. And then China, as an example, their coal production hits record highs. UK government. So here is the UK government. They announced that they want to ban on coal by power plants by the year 2025 and by the year 2050 to get to net zero emissions. I'll stop with this one right here. The Biden administration announces plans to invest $2 trillion in clean energy, and a big portion of that is around carbon capture and storage. I'm still in Google Bard, and I thought this was really interesting, and I found this by accident. So I asked the question of, hey, tell me about the Inflation Reduction Act, which was passed in 2022. And then I also wanted to see, tell me more about the carbon credits and the carbon capture and storage, as well as the dollar value for each category. So here I am in Google Bard still. I can't remember why I wanted to dig in on the Inflation Reduction Act, but when I did, I actually found something that was very interesting. First of all, there is a big portion of that bill around carbon credits and then around carbon capture and storage. And this is really interesting from a dollar value standpoint, that there's $386 billion allocated for climate and energy spending on tax breaks. Now remember, this is called the Inflation Reduction Act. But of the $386 billion, there's $124 billion allocated for the carbon credits and carbon capture and storage, which I thought very, very interesting. And they label it as the Inflation Reduction Act. So thought that was interesting, wanted to share. So a big part of this whole carbon capture and storage is going to be around coal. And I thought from a visual standpoint, just so you could see, no one is talking about this, but coal over the last few years has been one of the best buys out there. So this is coal, and here is the ticker symbol. It's XAL1. And what we're looking at here is just coal, but this dates back to, looks like right around '09. But you can clearly see that there's been some gradual uptick. But then here in like 2021, this thing just shot up. And to put that in perspective, this is the zero line down here. And right around here, this climbed almost 500% in about a year and a half. And then obviously it's come down. But when you look at this with all of the companies that are starting to dig in from a mining perspective, I fully expect coal again to do one of these and more to come on that. All right, back in Google Bard. Wanted to understand what's the global market cap of coal. So the global market cap of coal is estimated to be right around $1.5 trillion by 2023. And this is down from the peak of 2.3 trillion in 2011. And then right here, this makes up the 5 top countries for the largest coal market caps. And right here, China is number 1, Australia, and I've got a company that I'm going to talk about. You can see their charts, and they look absolutely amazing. I thought this was interesting with Russia coming up in the 3rd spot. And then India. I'm actually going to finish my video on a chart of coal for India, and that is in an extremely bullish pattern. So anyways, I thought that was interesting. And then if you add up the aggregate, these 5 countries represent a little over 70% of the total global market cap. Since we live in this new world of lack of trust and transparency, I thought I want to see if there's any validation. So I just asked the question in Google Bard, hey, list any third-party companies that check on carbon capture and storage for coal companies. And here's a few right here. And I thought that was interesting that there are some companies out there from a third-party standpoint. Here is one of those 3 that I was sharing, but this one's called International CCS Knowledge Center. So I was just checking out the website, but this is their main focus is on the carbon capture and storage, and they pride themselves on education, knowledge, as well as being a third-party vendor for the CCS space. So anyways, just wanted to share that with you. And most of these are nonprofits, which I also thought was interesting. Just real quick on some fundamentals. So this is McKinsey and Company. And for those of you that are aware of McKinsey and Company, you know that McKinsey is one of the biggest consulting companies globally. They're really the consulting company, in my opinion, behind the curtain that really help enterprises navigate through these uncharted waters, but also talk about how to get to the North Star and share with these companies that compass that they need, again, to navigate this new world we live in. So McKinsey and Company is definitely a player. And they had this is an article that came out in April of 2023, but it's basically saying the world needs to capture, use, and store gigatons of CO2, where and how. And I won't go into this, but this was a very interesting article that helped validate from a fundamental standpoint. And then just a kind of a last note on some fundamentals, but here is, this article actually came out today for time of recording, and we are in the 1st week of June. But for Exxon, they plan on monetizing the carbon capture. And what I won't share in here, it's not in this article, but by the year 2030, Exxon potentially can make, just off of the carbon capture, right around $1 billion in revenue. So this is going to be a brand new revenue stream. Hopefully that was helpful in describing what is carbon capture and storage, as well as the size of the market, and also around coal, because coal is going to be a big driver for carbon capture and storage. And why is that? You saw on that one slide all of the trillions of dollars that are going into this carbon capture and storage space. But more importantly, there is a force function around coal. And what's a force function? That means that there's a hard stop. So the coal manufacturing needs to rev up in order for these countries to start to fade out of coal altogether. All right, so I am in FinViz. Love this site. And I thought, let's start digging into some of the technicals. So what I want to share with you is, from an investment standpoint, let's follow the money. And I've got some ETFs I want to share, but also some individual companies. So this ticker is, I thought this was funny, it's called SMOG. And this is a Eck Low Carbon Energy ETF. And I am on the weekly time frame. When I looked at this, I thought this was interesting. I saw a little shelf forming from support standpoint. And then I wanted to take a look at the monthly time frame. So we're still looking at SMOG, and this is the monthly time frame. So it's this particular chart that really piqued my interest. Is maybe it's tough to see, but first of all, I just love this pattern right here. This is a great looking pattern. But if you can see the moving averages, we've got the price action above all of these SMAs, and there is a 20, 50, and a 200 on the monthly. So that really piqued my interest, and this is what led me to keep digging. So here I am in KRBN, and I just wanted to get a quick kind of feel for what is this ETF, the ticker for SMOG. And I won't read the whole thing, but right here it says, this fund invests in companies operating across low carbon energy companies. So that, and I won't read it, but that was interesting as I dug in. So I am back in KRBN, and I'm still fishing around, and I'm looking for, in this case, more ETFs. And here is one, CRBN Carbon, and this is an ETF by iShares. We are on the weekly time frame, and this also really caught my eye. So this is an extremely bullish formation, extremely, and let me share with you why. So first of all, we've got price action right here above all of the SMAs. Again, there's the SMA 20, 50, and 200, and they're all starting to curl up. But then more importantly is this right here. I saw this neckline forming right here. I can't draw a straight line. But what this is telling me is right here, I fully expect a good sizable breakout to the upside. And then also right here, I see an inverse head and shoulders pattern. This is the left shoulder, this is the head, and here is the right shoulder. This is literally one of the most bullish patterns in all of trading. So now we're still in FinViz, but I wanted to take a look at the monthly time frame for carbon. And this really got me excited. So this formation that we are in is, if you look at this, is just absolutely beautiful. So we've got right here, we had this breakout, looks like in sometime in the late 2020s, coming into 2021. But then we had this breakout coming back and did a retest, and now we've got this bounce in place. So I just love this shelf, if you can see that. So this really piqued my interest, and then the price action is above the MAs. So extremely bullish pattern for this particular ETF. I'm not too sure why I am surprised, but this I trust, this for the low carbon ETF right here. Guess what? BlackRock right here. This BlackRock actually owns this fund, and I won't read the entire description. Yeah, right here. It says it invests in the stocks of companies that are deemed socially conscious in their business dealings, directly promote environmental responsibility, aka low carbon. BlackRock, they are at it again. No surprise. Okay, now at this point, you can hopefully start to see a theme. And the theme is there is some amazing setups, and we are looking at KRBN, Carbon. This is a Crane Shares Trust. And again, this is a global carbon ETF. And I was curious to take a peek at anything global. So we are in the weekly time frame, and I thought this was another interesting setup in the making. So it looks like we've got a nice shelf of support, and we've got this compression wedge right here. So this piqued my interest. And now what I want to do is get into the monthly time frame to zoom way out. So clearly this is a newer ETF because there's not a lot of history, but on the monthly time frame, This thing is beautiful. So if this holds, and based off of the weekly, it looks like it's going to hold. But if this holds, we could see this. So this was very encouraging to me from a technical standpoint, and this validates to me that carbon capture and storage might be a real thing at this point. And as I progress through the video, I'm going to share with you here pretty quick around 10, 11, maybe 12 really solid setups in the CS space. All right, here's another ETF, LCTU, and we are on the weekly time frame. And wouldn't you know it, this is a BlackRock US now. So it's a BlackRock US Carbon Transition Readiness ETF. And when I saw this, once again, I just thought this was a beautiful setup in the making right there. So what I see right here is we've got another kind of head and shoulders pattern. Here's a left shoulder, right shoulder, and no, excuse me. We've got the left shoulder, the head, and the right shoulder. And then right here, this is breakouts. I love trading breakouts. And on these horizontal breakouts, these could be some of the most explosive. So once this thing does break out, I fully expect a nice move to the upside. And not only that, but on the weekly, price action is above all of the moving averages. So now let's take a quick peek at the monthly. So this ETF is also looks like a new one, which doesn't surprise me because carbon capture and storage is relatively pretty new in the grand scheme of things. But this is the monthly standpoint. And when I look at the monthly, this also is very positive. So hopefully you can see that. So right here, all of this acted as support. And now for a while there, this acted as resistance, but then we had a little breakout. I fully expect in the coming weeks, months that this is going to move nicely to the upside. I give this a high probability. Okay, so for the duration of the video, I just want to go through some more setups, and I think we've got about 10 or so, so I'll talk quick. But the whole point of me wanting to share with you these setups is to validate that this carbon capture and storage, it's a real thing. And so what we're looking at right now, this is the energy sector. And this is where all of these companies that these ETFs, as an example, and the companies I'm about to talk about all fall under this particular sector. And the ticker is the XLE. And I wanted to share this with you. So I am in TradingView, and they've got these really cool speedometers. So right now, the summary on the monthly time frame is a buy. So if we look over here on the oscillators, which is, think of like the MACD, the stochastic as an example, this is neutral. But over here on the moving averages, we've got a buy. And by the way, when I first found this 5, 6 years ago, I was extremely skeptical on these speedometers, but I'm not anymore. I don't use this as the end all be all, but I definitely use this as a validation standpoint for some of my setups. So thought that was interesting. So still in TradingView, and this is the energy sector. This is the XLE, and we're on the weekly time frame. So I wanted to provide the entire history, but so this dates back to looks like the late 90s. And you talk about a great looking setup. So I've got the moving averages. TradingView's got some really cool free moving averages indicators. And this is a Fibonacci one. It's easy on the eyes, these rainbow colors. But the point is I want to just share with you here is we've got price action resting nicely above these moving averages. And then more importantly, we've got this shelf of support. So right here, this whole section right here acted as overhead resistance. And this looks like it was back in the GFC days. And then right here, we tried to have another breakout, had a false breakout in looks like right around 2011. But then from the 2012 timeframe to 2015-ish, we had a breakout, but that didn't hold. But then this whole section right here from 2014 to right around 2018, this acted as overhead resistance. And then we had the COVID low, and here's another V-shaped recovery, and then price action just shot up. So what I'm really optimistic about is this looks like it will hold as support. And the last thing I'll say about this, if you remember the speedometers on how the moving averages were bullish, they were a buy. This is why. This is a classic moving averages, and this technically falls under that speedometer for the moving averages, and you can clearly see that this thing is shaping up nicely into a nice long-term buy. Not quite yet, but it looks like in the coming months, this is going to be a nice move to the upside. All right, here is Warrior Met Coal, and this is traded on the NYSE. And right now I'm on the daily time frame, but just wanted to share with you again these speedometers, and you can clearly see that the summary right here, which is an aggregate of the oscillators as well as the moving averages, but this looks like it is a strong buy. And then when we click on the weekly time frame, you can see over here that the oscillators went neutral, but the summary is still a buy because the moving averages is a strong buy. Then on the monthly, this is what I absolutely love. This tells me that this setup is early because we're still getting on the monthly, we're still getting a strong buy. So here is the technicals, and this is such a textbook setup. So these candles, these bars are 3-day time frames. So this takes us back to right around 2017. But what I wanted to illustrate is right here. And looks like in right around early 2018, we had price action come up here and got rejected again in late 2018. Had a little false breakout in 2019. And then for this whole section in here, price action was below. So how long was that? 2019 to 2022. So a little over 3 years. And then we had price action break up through, and it looks like it's been basing now since, let's see, 2022 to about a year and a half. But this is what I wanted to call out is I've overlaid this with the Bollinger Bands. And so we got a multi-time frame scenario going on. So these are 3-day candles overlaid with a monthly Bollinger Band. So right here is the top band. Right here is the bottom band. And this orange line is the mid band. And if you can see that price action is respecting that very nicely. So I'm very optimistic because again, 3-day candles overlaid with a monthly Bollinger Band. And this tells me that this yellow line right here looks like it's going to stick right now to act as a nice support. So if you remember at the beginning of the video, the top 5 countries, and Australia was in the top 5. This is Whitehaven Coal, and they are out of Australia. And I just wanted to share this with you. So this is really cool. I'm in TradingView, and they have the analyst ratings. And so we've got a future forecast right here. So at time of recording, price is $6.14. But on the low case, they're saying it's going to go up 14% to $7. Mid case, plus 35%. And on the high case, plus 56. And there are 13 analysts covering this. And not one are saying sell or strong sell. They're all saying hold, buy, and most are saying strong buy. And you can see that right here. So that's cool. Here is the chart of Whitehaven, and these are 2-week bars, but I absolutely love this chart. This is so textbook. If you remember the moving averages that I shared a few charts ago, same moving average. This is a Fibonacci moving average, free from TradingView. So a couple things to call out is right here looks like it's around 2008. So we had price come up, got rejected, and you can see right here, looks like this was basing for around 5, 6, 7 months and broke through, had a false breakout right around late 2011. And then down here is 2016. And then we came back up, it got rejected, COVID low, V-shaped recovery, and then boom, we had a breakout, retest, and I'm fully expecting a bounce. And why is that? If you look at the price action, It's sitting nicely within these moving averages. And then also, if you take a peek at the volume down here, this is just record volume for this stock. A lot of money is being poured into this particular one. Arch Resources on the NYSE. Arch Resources is also in the coal business. And I wanted to share this with you, what the analysts are thinking. So you can see right here, we've got a strong buy. There are 6 total analysts covering this, and all 6 right here are saying strong buy. So here's our current price at 115. They're saying on the low case, it'll be plus 21%, mid case plus 52, and on the stretch plus 73%. Here are the technicals. Each one of these bars represent a week. And right here takes us back to, looks like late 2016, early part of 2017. But there could not be a better looking chart. And if this was a technical analysis 101 class, and this was the first chart introduced to students on a SR flip, support and resistance flip, or a bullish pattern, this is it. This is textbook. So right here, price action came up here, got rejected, and then it got rejected again. Looks like in 2018 a few times, late 2018, 2019, late 2021. But then we had another breakout, retest, fully expecting a bounce. And then also just take a look at the volume right here. Just absolutely beautiful. This is the most volume right in this section right here for the entire history of Arch Resources. So absolutely beautiful technicals right here. Here's another one. Peabody Energy Corporation, traded on the NYSE. And I wanted to share with you the analyst ratings and what they are expecting. But first of all, there's 5 total analysts, and they're calling this a buy. And 3 of the 5 are saying strong buy, and then the other 2 are saying hold. No one is saying strong sell or sell. So here's the future forecast. Right now in the low case, they're calling plus 15%, mid case plus 45%, and on the stretch, almost up 70%. So here are the technicals for Peabody. So these are weekly time frames. And again, we have just a classic support and resistance. So right here, price action in, looks like late 2019, just basically just fell through, took the elevator all the way down, COVID low, boom, got rejected right here, and then came down. And by the way, these Bollinger Bands that I've overlaid, these are 3-week bands. So again, weekly time frame in terms of the candles, and these Bollinger Bands are 3 weeks. And I did that just to illustrate a point. So price action right here came up to the yellow line, got rejected, but more importantly, we had price action outside of the bands, which tells me that we're going to have a slingshot to the other direction, which we did nicely. And then right now we had a breakout in 2020, early 2022, and price action has been basing ever since. And there's a saying I love, and the saying is the bigger the base, the higher in space. So here is the base. It's just been going sideways now. Looks like a little over a year and a half. But what I like is that we got price action resting on the bottom of the band. And not only that, we've got the bands are squeezing. So that tells me we've got volatility coming. We just don't know which direction. But in this case, it looks like it's going to be a high probability to the upside. All right, here is yet again another one, Arch Resources. And I'm going to talk fast now. We've got about another handful of setups, but this too is traded on the New York Stock Exchange. And analyst rating, there's 6 total analysts, and all 6 are saying strong buy. And you can see right here on the low case up 21%, mid case up 52, and on the stretch, looks like they're calling up plus 73%. Here is another chart. So by the way, this is Arch Resources, and these are weekly timeframes. But if we had that college class, College 101 for TA, technical analysis, this chart would probably be in there. So once again, this whole section right in here looks like from late 2017 to mid 2019. So call this whole section 2 years just got rejected. And then it got rejected again right here. But then it was shot through, and lo and behold, we got another BRB. We had a breakout, retest, and we're looking for that bounce. And I love this moving averages. I wanted to share this with you. This is the EMA SMA ribbon from TradingView. It's free. And I just love it because it's easy on the eyes. Green means strength and red means weakness. There's much more to it, but from a 101 from indicator standpoint, love this indicator. Again, it's called the EMA SMA ribbon. I think I'm starting to repeat myself or sound like a broken record. So here's another one, Consol Energy. This is another coal company. This too is traded on the NYSE. There are 3 analysts that support this one. All 3 of them are saying we've got a strong buy. And then by the way, their low case, they're saying plus almost 19%, mid case plus 26%, and on the stretch plus 23%. So here are the technicals. Need I say more? I'll just spend a second on this. Just, man, this is beautiful. Absolutely a beautiful chart. So here we've got overhead resistance, and we had this is the COVID low once again, this V-shaped, but we had a nice breakout. Looks like we had a retest in early-ish 2023. And you can see I've got this EMA SMA ribbon again, just got this nice support. And by the way, if I didn't say this, these are the 3-day candles. But once again, the saying, the bigger the base, the higher in space. And this has been basing now for, looks like almost a year and a half. So again, in the coming months, I fully expect this to the upside. KRBN Energy, traded on the NYSE. There are 29 analysts that cover this, and they are saying this is a buy. And this is interesting. Not a single one of the 29 are saying sell or strong sell. And then on the mid case, they're saying plus like a 0.5%. And then on the mid case, up around 24%. And on the high case, plus 57%. And I think I forgot to mention, but KRBN Energy, they do a variety of energy plays, not just coal, but they're also in the natural gas and a few others. So, but I just wanted to mention them as well, because they don't just focus on coal, primarily in the natural gas. But I just wanted to share with you, this is just another great looking setup in terms of a buy. Let me just hop into the technicals. So here is the KRBN Energy, and right down here is like 89. So what is this? Almost over 40 years. Right here, we had price action come up. Looks like the GFC around '08 got rejected for, looks like a few months. And then we finally had a nice breakout, broke out to the downside. But this is what's really cool. This has been acting as support. We've had some issues in this section, but this whole horizontal looks like it's holding up nicely. But more importantly, and these are 2-week candles, and I'm back to that Fibonacci moving average. I love this. The Fibonacci moving average, it's starting to squeeze. It doesn't look like this where the bands are spreading apart. It's just getting tight, like right down on this section. So I fully expect where we're at right here, this could potentially look like something like this. I fully expect a move to the upside in the coming months. Here we are again, Alliance Resource Partners, NASDAQ. And this company is a mining company. They have all sorts of different mining, but they too are in the coal business as well. And from an analyst standpoint, they're all saying a strong buy. And you can see on the low case, this is a hot one, plus 55. Again, on the low case, plus 55%, mid case, plus 62, high case, plus almost a little over 77%. What's interesting, whenever I see those analyst ratings that are buys and strong buys, Yeah, I'm somewhat skeptical, and that's why I like to look at the technicals myself. And when I see this is Alliance Resources, and each one of these candles are monthly. So this takes us back to the year 2000. And if you notice, we've got the moving average again, and the moving average right here is squeezing, which is telling us that there's a ton of energy and volatility. We don't know the direction, but based on how price action is resting nicely above the moving averages and above this support, that volatility, high probability to the upside. And not only that, we've got this compression, this wedge formation, which creates a ton of energy. And once again, in probably a few months, fall of 2023, fully expect this to the upside and then take a peek at the volume. See right here, we had this nice volume candle right there, and then just massive volume for the, looks like this is the best volume we've had for this stock since the history of it. So Alliance Resources, this is a textbook setup. All right, just about two more, maybe three more, and we are done. And I wanted to just leave you with this on this one. This is that Eck Low Carbon Energy ETF, and I just want to share this with you within TradingView. So right now I'm on the daily time frame, and on the moving averages, it's a strong buy. But the summary, which is the aggregate of the two, so the oscillators and the moving averages, we've got a buy. But then if we click on the weekly, we still, over here, we've got a buy. So let's hop into the technicals. Woo! Love this chart. So these are 2-week bars, and this takes us right here. Looks like it's around '06. So, man, where do I begin? Absolutely love this. It looks like we could potentially have this massive cup and handle forming. But what I love is, if you notice, we've got these again, 2-week time frame, but we got the Fibonacci moving averages, and you can see right down in here, they're starting to squeeze. And what I fully expect in the coming months, same thing. We've got this big, massive breakout, came down here. We've got a retest. We are basing, and we are basing for looks like a breakout to the upside. And the reason why I'm fairly certain that the bottom is in, if you notice the fibs that I placed, and I anchored the fib right here, so on the swing low pivot, as well as the swing high up here. But if you notice from a retracement standpoint, we literally, the price action right there came down to the 0.618. That is so textbook from a retracement standpoint. So that's why I feel the bottom is in, looks like a few months ago. Looks like right around late 2022, early 2023. But this too, I fully expect this to capitulate a little bit in the coming months and then start to move to the upside. Great looking chart from a technical standpoint. All right, iShares. This is that low carbon ETF. Had to share this with you. And I'm still in TradingView on the speedometers, but we're on the weekly time frame, and we've got the moving averages as a strong buy. Oscillators say sell, which I'm totally cool with. But then if we jump over to the monthly, when I say cool with, by the way, I'm not spooked by any stretch, because it just validates to me when you look at the charts that we're still a little early. But then if you look on the monthly, you'll notice that the oscillators went neutral. They went from sell to neutral. So that's really encouraging. And then the moving average is held at the strong buy. Net, the summary, it's still a buy. This is such a beautiful chart. Here's another one. If there was a college class, a one-on-one class for TA, this would be in it. So each one of these candles represent 8 days. And I just wanted to do that so we can see the whole history. And this dates back to 2015. But right here, got a classic. So came right here. We got rejected. This looks like it's early 2018. We had a false breakout in like 2020. And right here, we had this looks like the COVID low. This is a V-shaped recovery. Again, you ready? BRB. We had a breakout, retest in late 2022. And now we are doing the bounce. And the thing I love is, look at this moving average. Price action's above, and these moving averages are getting tighter and tighter. So what this is saying is there is volatility ahead. We don't know which direction, but based off of this setup, I give this a high probability to the upside. And from a risk reward standpoint, great looking chart. BlackRock, the Carbon Transition Readiness ETF. And I'm on the weekly, right? You can see this for yourself. Summary's a buy, oscillator's neutral, moving average is strong buy. But let's kick it over to a month. And if you notice, just watch this. So weekly, watch the oscillators. They're all saying buy or strong buy. And again, the reason why I like this on the monthly, this tells us that we are early. So we've still got some time, but we are definitely early. We're not missing. This is the point. We're not missing a good move to the upside. So let's jump into the technicals. And these are 2-day candles. And remember, these carbon ETFs, these are relatively pretty new, but this thing is absolutely beautiful. So 2-day candles, and this whole section right here acted as support for the price action. It's not a long sample set, long history, but looks like mid 2019, but I think this looks like maybe a year and a half-ish. But when price action fell below, now we had a SR flip. So now this is acting as overhead resistance. But we've got a little breakout right here. And this is what is really encouraging. Take a look at these moving averages. They are squeezing and they are getting tighter and tighter. So once again, this is telling us that there's volatility coming soon. Does not say which direction, but based off of this SR flip, meaning this right here is now potentially acting as support, and you've got the moving averages squeezing, which is saying high probability of a breakout to the upside. And from a risk reward standpoint, this is fantastic. All right, this is the last one, and I alluded to this at the beginning of the video. Those top 5 countries for coal, India is on the top 5, and I had to share this with you. So here is the chart, and I will leave you with this. So these are monthly bars, monthly candles, and this is, the ticker is coal 1 exclamation point. And again, this is for India. And for any of you that are familiar with this pattern, this is a cup and handle pattern. This too is one of the absolute most bullish patterns in all of trading. I'd give this around an 80% probability for a breakout to the upside. India, they're definitely going to be a player when it comes to coal, which also relates to carbon capture. All right, so that is it. I appreciate you hanging around, sticking around, and I hopefully, from an education standpoint, I provided some value in terms of what the heck is carbon capture. And from a growth perspective, it looks like it's going to be becoming a household name. And the thing I forgot the most, how does blockchain fit into this? It's really simple. All of these recordings from a carbon capture standpoint, from like a timestamp, date, time, who's doing it, the players, it's going to all be recorded on the chain, which means it cannot be immutable. And in this world of lack of trust and transparency, this is where blockchain has a great use case for the carbon capture and storage. In closing, this is not financial advice. I just wanted to raise awareness around carbon capture and storage, but also personally, prices. I would fully expect, because this all falls under the energy sector. And so this tells me, again, from a validation standpoint, that we're going to fill this in the pocketbooks here in the fall and winter of next year. Hey, thanks again so much. We'll talk later.